Our gospel this morning comes from the 10th chapter of Matthew, beginning with verse 40. Jesus said to the 12, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward." The gospel of the Lord. You may be seated. Grace to you and peace on this beautiful day. We come together as people seeking to know God's love in a way that impacts not only our lives, but impacts our world. And as we look at this text today about how to welcome one another, how to care for one another, I began to think about the theme of kindness and how much kindness can change our world. And of course, every time you develop a theme, it seems like God places a story or something, an illustration in front of you, and then you have to just run with it. So this week, this is the illustration that came to me via Facebook, actually. And so I want to share this wonderful story about the yellow umbrella. The yellow umbrella. Her name is Lily, and she writes this. "I bought the yellow umbrella because it was on sale. That's the whole reason. No deep meaning, no special story, at least not at first. It was a bright yellow umbrella hanging near the checkout counter of the department store in Cleveland, Ohio. Mine had broken in a storm the week before, and so I saw this one discounted by $8, so I grabbed it. I just grabbed it. A few days later, it rained. Not a light drizzle, but a kind of rain that seemed to be determined to soak everyone within seconds. I had just finished shopping downtown when I stepped outside and I opened my brand new yellow umbrella. Immediately, I noticed something. People smiled when they saw it. The umbrella was impossible to miss because it looked like a giant sunflower floating through the crowd. One woman even laughed and said, "Well, that's cheerful." And I smiled and I kept walking. A few blocks later, I reached a crosswalk and I noticed an older man standing nearby without any rain gear, and he was getting drenched. So without thinking much about it, I walked over. "Want to share?" He looked surprised and then grateful. And together we crossed the street under my giant yellow umbrella. The entire interaction lasted maybe 30 seconds. But before we parted ways, he smiled and said, "You made a rainy day a little brighter." I thought about that comment that afternoon, not because sharing an umbrella was such a big deal, because sometimes the smallest gesture at just the right time can leave an impression. The following week, it rained again. This time I shared my umbrella with a college student running across the parking lot. A week after that, I helped a woman carrying groceries and trying to keep her toddler dry. Then a tourist looking for directions. Then a woman leaving a doctor's office. Each time, the umbrella became a tiny shelter shared between strangers. And every time, a brief conversation followed. Nothing life-changing, just human conversation. The kind we often miss when we're rushing through our days. Over time, the yellow umbrella became oddly famous among all of my friends. If the rain was in the forecast, someone would inevitably ask, "Did you bring the umbrella?" It became a running joke. Then when afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was leaving a bookstore during a sudden downpour when a teenage employee ran out. "Wait!" I turned around. She pointed at my umbrella. "You're the yellow umbrella lady." I laughed. Apparently, she had heard about me from a customer who had heard about me from someone else, a customer who had once shared an umbrella. The whole thing seemed ridiculous, and yet it was wonderful. Word had somehow spread, but not because of me, but because people remembered how it felt when someone helped them. A few months later, our city experienced several weeks of unusually rainy weather. One Saturday, I was walking through a local outdoor market when I noticed a little girl staring at my umbrella. She couldn't have been older than 6. "It's so bright," she said. I smiled and showed her my umbrella. She nodded and she said, "You know, it looks like sunshine." Sunshine. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about those words. The umbrella wasn't keeping people dry as much as it was making them smile. So the next morning, I bought 3 more yellow umbrellas online, and then 5 more. I wasn't exactly sure why, but an idea had started forming. A few weeks later, I started giving them all away. One to a teacher, one to a nurse, one to a crossing guard, one to a neighbor, one to a woman who volunteered at the local food pantry. And along with each umbrella, I included a little note. "Share this wherever someone needs a little sunshine." That was it. No instructions, no expectations, just a simple idea. Months passed, and then the stories started appearing. The teacher shared her umbrella with a student caught in the rain. A nurse walked a patient to their car. The crossing guard helped children stay dry after school. The umbrella traveled person to person, moment to moment. One neighbor told me she had shared hers so many times that she lost count. Another said the umbrella helped her meet people she never would have spoken to otherwise. The bright yellow color made it easy and invited conversation. It made people smile. It became my favorite story. A woman sent me a message through her community social media page. She explained that she had been having a terrible day. Her flight had been delayed, her luggage was missing, and it was pouring rain. And as she stood outside the airport trying to figure out what in the world to do, a stranger approached her and offered her to share a bright yellow umbrella. The woman remembered feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. A simple act completely changed her mood. And she ended her message this way. She said, "It reminded me that good people are everywhere." I sat at my kitchen table smiling after reading it because she was right. Good people are everywhere. Most of them aren't making headlines. Most aren't seeking attention. They're simply helping where they can, holding doors, returning lost items, sharing umbrellas, offering kindness. The world is full of these people. We just don't always notice. About a year after buying my umbrella, I attended a community festival. Thousands of people filled the park. There were food trucks that lined the sidewalks, and children were playing in the park. Local musicians were performing. As I walked through the crowd, I spotted something familiar. A bright yellow umbrella. And then another. And then another. Several people were carrying them. I couldn't believe it. The little idea had spread farther than I realized. At one point, I counted 7 yellow umbrellas in the same area. All bright, all cheerful, all impossible to miss. And I started laughing. A stranger nearby noticed, "What's so funny?" And I pointed to the umbrellas and explained my story. By the end, she was laughing too, and she said, "Well, you know, that's how kindness works." And she was right. Kindness rarely stays in one place. It spreads. It grows. Sometimes through big actions, and often through little, small, unintentional ones. Today, I still have that original umbrella. It's a little worn now. The handle has scratches. The fabric shows signs of countless rainy walks. But I love it. Not because it's special, but because it reminds me a simple purchase made on an ordinary afternoon ended up creating hundreds of unexpected connections, all because a person shared a little shelter. Whenever storm clouds roll in, I still carry that bright yellow umbrella. And every time someone smiles when they see it, I think about the little girl who called it sunshine. Because maybe that's what kindness is. A little bit of sunshine that we carry everywhere with us. And whenever we share it, even for a moment, the world becomes a little brighter for everyone underneath it. Some days, we all would admit it, especially after we've listened to the latest news. Don't we find it hard to have hope? Don't we find it hard to embrace sunshine, even though we long for it? This simple story reminds us why Jesus came in the first place. There are all kinds of theological things that have been said about why Jesus came, how God has worked through his love on Christ. But remember how I talked about sheep a few weeks ago, how we are harassed and confused so easily? We long to hear that, "Hey, Daddy," tells us how to find our way. I think another way in which we really can feel God's love and share God's love is simply through acts of kindness. Whatever is in front of us, just do it. When we find simple ways to share even a cup of cold water to someone who's thirsty, or a happy good morning, or a touch, a smile, we speak of God's love in a way that cannot be denied. It cannot be pushed away. St. Francis of Assisi is known to have said this: "Preach the gospel always, but only use words if absolutely necessary." So share your bright yellow sunshine wherever you go. Because when you do, this world can see God's love in a way that the news cannot project. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen.